Good morning, guys. Thanks so much for joining me this morning for our digital marketing webinar called Fix the Basics. My name is Kristy Bailey. If I haven't met you before, I am an advisor and also a presenter on behalf of Business Station as part of the ASBAS program. I'm also the director of 180 Marketing, which is a small marketing agency that focuses on strategic marketing with small businesses. So a lot of what we're going through today is based on real life experience and things that I do on a daily basis. So please feel free to draw on any of that experience. Now, this webinar is designed to be interactive, so please use the Q&A or the chat functionality at any time and pop questions in there as you go. We'll also have some time towards the end of the webinar if you'd want to ask any questions at that point. But yeah, as I said, feel free to ask questions as we go. So in terms of what we're going to go through today, well, first of all, we're going to talk about the key components of an online marketing strategy or of your online marketing and some must-dos in each of these areas. And that will include your website, online business listings, your SEO, search engine optimization, SEM being search engine marketing, your social media, and then finally we'll end with a little bit of info on email marketing as well. So we do have quite a lot to get through. Now, everyone will be at varying levels in their journey with online marketing. So if things start to get a little bit technical for you perhaps, and you do want a little bit more clarification, just keep in mind this will give you an overview. Some of the things that we talk about, you may not want to be managing yourself. You may have someone that does your SEO, for example, for you, but knowing and understanding the back end of that process a little bit more is going to help you. So keep that in mind. And like I said, please shoot through questions. So in terms of the online marketing benefits, we'll start there because online marketing is hugely beneficial. And from a small business perspective, it's really cost effective as well. So as you would know, many consumers use the internet to search and find various businesses and actively seek out information. Now that information could be as simple as your contact details. They could be looking for what products and services you have available, or they could be looking to actually purchase products and services, but they're doing that at a time that suits them. So it is 24/7. Not only do you have that global reach and the ability to reach more people, but it is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's a key thing to keep in mind. Your website is your number one salesperson and online marketing is working 24/7. So you're really accessing people in places and at times that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. Now, it is obviously low cost or cost effective. It's accessible to any size business or budget. So a lot of what we're talking about today, and particularly with basic online marketing, you can do this in-house. If you don't have the time or the resources to do that, then you can also outsource almost everything that we talk about today. So a combination of both is always great. And as I mentioned, if you're on a limited budget, you can do it in-house. If you're not, if you've got a little bit more budget and prefer to spend your time making sales, for example, then you can outsource people to do these various things, but having this understanding of what they're actually going to be doing and what's happening behind the scenes will really help you to manage those people as well. So in terms of what happens online, everything is very measurable. So we can track people right down to the last click. So those results, you don't have to wait a few weeks like you would with a traditional ad that you might pop in a newspaper and just, gauge the results. Then we can measure those results as we go pretty much immediately. So keep that in mind as well. Now, everything that you do online should be measured and you should have some measurement or goals in mind prior to actually undertaking any advertising activity, but particularly online. In terms of who we're actually targeting, this is another huge benefit of online marketing. You can accurately, reach your target market. So once you know exactly who that audience is, who that specific person is that you're targeting, you can place advertising exactly where they are consuming media. So that's a huge benefit. It also, through the use of social media and other online platforms, you can really extend and build those relationships with your clients. So it becomes more than just a transaction, and then that's the last you see of your client. Basically, we want to keep them and keep engaging with them for years to come through online mechanisms like social media. So lots of benefits there. Now, we're going to start with your website. Now, that's really the core of your online marketing. It is only part of the strategy, but potential customers will come to your website. So it is kind of where they're going to make that judgment on you. They still need to be able to find your website. You then have to actively engage with current and future customers online, like we're saying, through social media. But your website is really where it's at in terms of what that first impression is going to be from your consumers. So Steve Jobs has been quoted saying that design is not just what it looks like and feels like, it's how it works as well. Now, what's really important there is understanding your target market and what they expect to be able to achieve on your website. So going through some of those points that you see on the screen and some of the design elements, the purpose is really important. So what is the purpose of your website? What do you want customers to do on there? And communicating that to them is really important. Communicating information to them is really important as well. So making sure from a design perspective that they can find information that they want very easily and quickly as well. We don't want customers to go onto our website and be looking to answer a specific question and be lost in pages and pages and pages of content and still not get the answer. So think about, from a design perspective and a communication perspective, think about what kind of questions get asked to you as a business and make sure that you're answering those online. Images are hugely important, making sure that they do position your brand correctly as well. So we talk, and I'll talk quite a lot about target markets throughout today. You might get sick of hearing the term, but your images have to speak directly to your target market. So if your market is targeting an older, or if your market is an older demographic, so your business targets an older market, for example, then the images of people using your product and service online should depict that older market. And that will send a message. So say, you know, I'm in my 60s, I go onto your website and I see other people in their 60s using your product or service. I immediately feel comfortable and know that I've kind of come to the right place. So those images are really important. Being professional images is great. Stock images can look like stock images. So I would recommend trying to get your own photographs if your budget allows. And just making sure that those images that you use are true to your product or service. So they do really carefully and accurately depict what your business is all about. Now, that's so important because you could sell something online, whether that's a booking to come and see you or it's an actual product. So it could be a service or a product. But when your customer gets to you or gets the product, it's absolutely crucial that it matches exactly what they've seen online. Otherwise, you're going to have issues in terms of customer satisfaction. Now, fonts and colors are both really important. Your fonts have to be easy to read. They have to be a large enough size, clear in terms of what color they are and what background, and that ties in with your colors. Your colors have to be complementary to your brand and suit your target market. So do a little bit of research, and that's more of a branding exercise because your brand will transfer onto your website. So in terms of fonts and colors, that really comes down to exactly, again, who your target market is. Now, navigation is crucial as well. So how easy is it to take action and move around? So essentially, we want people to be able to get to where they're going in 3 clicks or less. We don't want to have to get them to go through multiple steps just to find a page or information that they want. So that navigation is really important. Testing that navigation is important as well. You're probably very comfortable with your website, understand how to move around it, but give somebody a task, someone that isn't familiar with your website. Give them a task, tell them to go on and buy something or book an appointment with you or find your address, your contact details, and watch them do it. See the steps that they go through. That kind of testing is absolutely crucial. You can see if there's any stoppages or any blocks in that process. You want that process to be as smooth as possible. In terms of the actual layout, that F pattern is really important. So it's how we read. We read left to right and we look at things top to bottom. So consider that and make sure that the information flows on your website in that pattern as well. Your load time is absolutely crucial. Now, load time is so important for the consumer. So obviously, if we go to a website or a particular page on a website and it takes too long to load, we'll get frustrated and move away from that page pretty quickly. It's also really important for SEO. So search engines obviously monitor load time of all pages, and if they're not loading fast enough, it's really going to do damage to your search engine rankings. I will go into that more, but it's really important to keep in mind. A lot of what you do for the user or the consumer also helps with your search engine optimization. So that's crucial. And that it also goes for being mobile friendly or responsive. The website that you see on the screen there is a responsive website. So basically the shape will adapt based on the size of the device that the user is opening it on. So it's not a different site. You don't have a mobile site and then a desktop sort of version of the site, like some businesses do, like your bigger businesses like Qantas, for example. There's just too much information to adapt down to a small mobile version. So they create an entire separate mobile site for use on mobile. Small businesses, we just want a responsive site. So we want it to be mobile friendly and to adapt its size and shape. So everything that you do has to be speaking to and aimed at your target market. And that's everything I've mentioned: design, colors, navigation, fonts, technology, functionality. It's all about who you're aiming your marketing towards. So again, go back to defining your target market. So we'll talk more about being found in terms of SEO. So keep that in mind. And like I said, everything that we do here from a design perspective is crucial from an SEO perspective. Just make sure that your website is doing your business justice. Is it selling your product or service as it should? A lot of people will make that judgment very quickly within a couple of seconds as to their first impressions, what they think of your business. So the last thing you want is to come up in a search that they're doing for a particular product or service. People hit your website. They've got about 2 seconds to make that decision on whether or not they're interested in working with you, buying from you, becoming a client. And that's based on no interaction with yourself, your staff, no understanding of your product range, pricing, anything like that. It's purely a judgment on the homepage of your website. So consider that. And I would encourage you to go onto your website and have a look and see what those first impressions are, and even do some testing with people on what those first impressions might be on your website. Now, if you do need to create a new website, there are some sites that you can create your website yourself. There's design templates you can use, so you can very much do that yourself. I think given that a website is so crucial, now whether you sell anything online or people just use your website to get your contact details or to get to your location, people are making that judgment call on you. So it absolutely needs to have the attention that it deserves in that sense. So I would highly recommend using a web developer to get that professional website built. Once it's built, you should be able to manage it yourself. So it's generally an initial outlay. So consider that. But if you're comfortable in building the site yourself, there's plenty of tools that you can use. There's templates that you can also use. So it does make it quite easy, but it is quite obvious as well. Developer built sites versus template and sort of home built sites can really, really vary. So keep that in mind. If you choose to use a developer, you have to remember that costs can really vary. Now, they can vary depending on functionality, on the overall design, exactly what you want from that website. They can also vary developer to developer. So I'd recommend getting at least a couple of quotes. I sort of work on the basis of getting 3 different quotes, and that way you can compare what the inclusions are and compare the price. And then obviously go with the business that you're most comfortable with. But in terms of how you choose that business, first of all, look at their past projects, look at other websites that they've worked on and see if they're in line with what you sort of would like to see. Of course, you have to understand their level of expertise. If you've got specific technology or functionality that you want to implement in your website, you have to make sure that they're actually capable of building that. You also need to make sure that that process is really transparent. So get them to lay out exactly what their costs include. You need to also consider how many revisions that is. So I've got that as another point there, what the price includes, how many pages they'll build, how many revisions they'll do for that price. So let's say they design or give you a sample design, you don't like it. Will they go back and revise that 1, 2, 3, 5 times, however many they will state in that? In terms of the process being transparent, work on deadlines, milestones, so that you know exactly what you're up for in terms of timeframes. Now, websites can take time to build. So that transparency is really important. With web developers, you will have to provide them content and information as well. So if there is a time frame and a timeline with key milestones, you're going to have to make sure that you're meeting your end of the bargain as well. Otherwise, the website time frame and the build is going to be delayed. So keep that in mind in terms of them saying what their deadlines and milestones are, and you having the same as well. I find it always helps to be able to meet them. I say face-to-face, we're sort of talking face-to-face at the moment. So if it's over Zoom, that's absolutely fine. Or if it's in person, even better. Or over phone, but having that conversation so you can explain to them, thanks so much for sending this through. I did like these aspects. I didn't like these aspects. Can we tweak it? Can we do this? Can we do that? Sometimes just that verbal engagement makes all the difference from a communication perspective, and you can get to the end result a lot quicker. The last recommendation I would have in terms of working with a web developer is to make sure that your website is built in a good content management system. WordPress is fantastic, just as an example, but there are quite a few. The reason we would recommend that you build in a content management system is that CMSs like WordPress, for example, they're continually updating their CMS. They're continually releasing new updates, developments in line with technology changes. You want to make sure that you've got something that's continually up to date so that your website continues to work as new technologies emerge. So building with a trusted content management system not only gives you access to the back end so that you can update your website, make changes, add new photos, add new text, etc. But it means that those updates you can benefit from as well. Now, experts say that you should be able to update your website as quickly as you can your social media. So you don't want to get caught in a situation where you have to go back to the developer to update your opening hours, for example, or a couple of words here and there. You want to have that access through a content management system. So in terms of content on your website, content is absolutely key. So content is important for two reasons. One of them is for SEO, so search engine optimization, and the other one is for actually converting people into customers. You need to talk to your target market with your content. So again, going back to who is that person that is going to purchase your product or services, and speak to them directly. Your content needs to be original. Obviously, search engines crawl pages and they look for content. If you've got repeated content on multiple pages, it can set up a bit of a red flag for search engines, but also it has to be your own content. So we don't want to be plagiarizing or anything like that. And the content has to be relevant to your business. Now, I quite often get a question with online retail stores where they've got product descriptions, and can they use the product descriptions relevant to the supplier? So let's say you are selling a particular type of shoe and the supplier of that shoe has a description of it. Yes, of course, you can use that. It doesn't have to be original in that sense if it's a small description, but the overall content on your website should be your own when it's talking about your business. Your content should be succinct and straight to the point. Remember, we're not going on websites to read thousands of words. We're going there to get information. So making sure that you're getting and giving that information to people that are on your website is really important. Get that information to them quickly, but make sure it's enough, obviously. Now, headlines and bullet points come into that, where you can break things up with good headlines so that your customers' eyes are immediately drawn to those headlines and they know they can easily see what is going to appeal to them and what content they need to get to. Bullet points do the same thing, where you can it just breaks up the massive words, makes it a lot easier to read. Now, the last recommendation in terms of content is make sure you proofread absolutely everything. Not only does it look extremely unprofessional to have web pages that have errors on them, there can be concerns there in terms of SEO. So if you spell accommodation wrong, for example, and you're trying to rank well for accommodation key terms, then obviously it's not going to be picked up. So those kind of things from a professionalism perspective is kind of the first issue, and then SEO as well. So in terms of functionality and accessibility for your website, Consistency with your headings is really important. Now, I'll get into your headings shortly, but basically in the back end of your website, you can label headings with an H1, H2, H3, H1 being the biggest heading, and then the smaller the heading, the smaller that H number. Now, be consistent with the size of your headings across your website. So if the top heading is an H1 size, so it's a larger size, make sure that that's the same on every page of your site, just so that it looks consistent and looks professional. If you're not understanding the H1, H2, H3, never mind. That's just a sizing thing, but I'll explain that when we get into SEO as well. Now, all internal pages of your site should be accessible in 3 clicks or less. So I did mention that earlier. Think about pages on your site. How buried are they? We don't want them to be. We want people to be able to go, let's say they're on your homepage, they go to your menu, the top menu, they click on one menu item, which drops down to another one. So that's 2 clicks to get to where they're going. So think about that. Think about pages of your site. Are they too deep? Are they ever going to be found? Now, obviously, through looking at the analytics on your website, you can see what pages are regularly clicked, and you can see people's behavior on your website as well. So you can assess that when you're looking at what pages of your site to put where. Now, your home link is really important. You don't need to have a home button as such. You don't need the word home. People widely accept that your logo will take people home. So what you need to do is make sure that your logo is clickable and it does take people home, because that's sort of an unwritten rule that people would expect it to. So you don't want people sitting there trying to click on your logo and it's not taking them anywhere. So keep that in mind. Traditional navigation, whilst you can get quite creative with websites and use all kinds of navigation, I think traditional navigation is the most understood, easiest to follow. I would try not to get too tricky in terms of navigation, because we want a broad range of people, and there's people at varying levels. Obviously, again, you would know your target market, so you know what kind of capabilities they have from a technological perspective, but that traditional navigation makes sense to the majority of people. Now, throughout your website, it's really important to make your call to actions obvious. Now, your call to action will vary depending on what it is that your objective of your website, so what it is that you want from people, but you really have to tell them what you want. So if you want them to buy something, have the ability to buy now regularly. So let's say on the top right-hand side of every page, they can buy now. So you don't want them to have to go back 3 pages to find that buy now button that you had on your homepage, for example. You want it easily accessible. People will be ready to convert at different stages throughout your website. So for me, I might have been onto your website 5 times. So this time that I go on, I just want to go on and buy that thing. Whereas someone else might be at the start of their research. So they might go to 3 or 4 different pages and then decide they want to buy. So you really have to always have that call to action where people can find it on any page. Now, your call to action might be buy, it could be book if you've got appointments, it could be contact us, it could be call us. So keep that in mind. Now, the last point there is just to have consistent navigation on all of your pages. So whatever your menu is on your homepage, that should be consistent on all pages. It should be like a template that no matter whether I'm at your contact us page or I'm at your main page about your menu of things that you're selling, that navigation is exactly the same. And that's again for consistency. If I've started using your navigation, I become somewhat familiar with it. If you then change it halfway through my research process, it's going to confuse me. So you need to make it as simple as possible for the consumer. So that's functionality and accessibility. Now, looking at technology, I have mentioned fully responsive, and that's what you see on the screen, where there's one website you build one website and it adapts its size and shape and menus based on whatever size device it's being looked at. Being built with a content management system is crucial for yourself and for updates. So for yourself, being able to update your website, but for updates to the content management platform so that you can continually be able to use your website on emerging technology. Online bookability or purchase ability, or that online sale is absolutely crucial, and having reliable hosting is really important as well. Now, you can get hosting extremely cheap, and I made this mistake probably about 15 years ago when I first built a website for my business, and I used overseas hosting, and I think it was something like $2 a month or something fantastic value, but I think my website was down more often than it was up. So I would highly recommend using reliable hosting. Now, hosting isn't expensive. Sometimes you'll find developers want to host your website as well. I would try and steer away from that, and I would recommend that you have independent hosting. IINet, those kind of guys do great hosting, but obviously shop around and find what's best for you, but it shouldn't cost you more than a couple $100 a year. So consider that. Now, in terms of your website and technology, a really interesting stat or an interesting, I guess, recommendation is that you should consider building your website for mobile first, then worry about what it looks like on desktop later. Now, the differences are quite huge. You can see from that image on your screen that on a desktop, your images are very much landscape. So a lot of photographers, or if you're building a website, you'll install or you'll load out a lot of landscape orientation images. But then look on mobile and tablet, and that's where a portrait style works there. So there's those kind of things, but there's menus and functionality. So the majority of people will be looking at your website via devices before they would desktop. So consider that. If you haven't looked at what your website looks like on a device recently, I would encourage you to get on and have a look. But yeah, just be aware that, that you should really be building for mobile first. And failing that, make sure that you absolutely know exactly what your website does, how usable it is, and how it looks on mobile. So now we're going to talk about SEO. We've used the term a couple of times. You may or may not be familiar with what it is, but SEO basically stands for search engine optimization. And that is the process of improving your site to increase its visibility on relevant searches or in search engines. So for SEO to be effective, you have to understand what people are actually searching to get to your site. So keyword research is absolutely crucial. So I would recommend that you do keyword research before you even start considering SEO or make any changes to your website. What I mean by keyword research is that I will have companies come to me and say, my website ranks really well. And I'd say, that's great. What does it rank well for? And a lot of businesses don't actually know what they're ranking for. So let's say I have got a business that is a cafe in, we'll say, Perth City. Now, I could rank really well for Perth City Cafe, but there might not be anybody searching that term. It could be Cafe Perth City, or that's probably not a great example because a lot of Google Maps will come up there, but you have to know exactly where the search volumes are to know what you then should be targeting for SEO. So normally what we do, if you've had anyone work on your website and do SEO for you, I would encourage you to go back to them and ask what key terms they focused on. Get that list and then check it and make sure there is actually people searching those terms. Now, there's a couple of tools that you can use to determine search terms. Suggest is a Chrome plugin extension, that you can basically add it onto your browser, and then every time you search a key term, it'll tell you how many average monthly searches there are for that term. I find that really handy. Otherwise, there in Google, there is a keyword planner tool where, again, you enter the search terms and it'll tell you what the search volume is on it. But do your own research. Have a think about your business and think, if people were trying to get to my business or purchase from me or get to my website, what terms would they potentially be searching? So keyword research will then, you do the brainstorming, keyword research will basically back that up. You might get some suggestions of other terms that you could use. Then the next step is to work on your websites to improve your ranking for those key search terms, and that's in search engines like Google. Now, we'll refer to Google a lot because obviously it's the predominant search engine. Now, good SEO is really a combination of hundreds of different tactical efforts. It does change and evolve, so that things that you might have done from an SEO perspective that resulted in top rankings only a few years ago might not be as significant now. So it's important to continuously look at your SEO. It does take time. I would recommend to allow about a month after doing some work to start to see any results, because it does constantly change. So you need to keep up to date with what the latest algorithms are, and then modify your SEO efforts accordingly. Now, SEO is a combination of on-page and off-page optimization techniques. So we'll go into those in just a second. But first of all, to look at how search engines like Google actually find out or work out how well to rank your website. So they do this through web bots. Now, web bots will crawl your site to understand what your website and what your business is actually about. They will then index all of your pages, so individually index pages of your website into their database. And then as people search, they will list your website's pages, hopefully on the first page of results, but based on how relevant each individual page is to what the user has actually searched. It obviously, the idea is to increase targeted visitation to your website. So those key search terms that you're targeting is absolutely crucial. Now, in terms of SEO and what you can do to improve your SEO, I mentioned there's two forms of SEO. There's on-page SEO, and that's everything that happens on your website that affects the ranking. And then there's off-page SEO. So we'll talk about on-page SEO first. Now, a few different things, and I will expand on these. But first of all, readable URLs are really important. I'll show you an example of that shortly. Internal links from various pages on your website to other pages within your website. So page-to-page linking to relevant content. So your homepage might talk about your product range. And then as you mention your product range, it'll link to that specific page on your website. Just makes it easy for the consumer. So as I'm reading, you're telling me you've got these products and I can just click and go to that product rather than having to go back up to the menu, find the product and then click through. 301 redirects are really important, and that's basically telling a search engine that a URL that used to be in a particular location has now moved, and that avoids getting your consumers getting error pages. Google bots absolutely hate error pages because, again, Google, and I say Google, but there's Yahoo and Bing, of course, but search engines don't want to be serving up websites to consumers that are going to frustrate them or are going to lead them to error pages. So everything that you do from an SEO perspective should have the consumer in mind, because everything that Google cares about is really about the consumer as well. So keep that in mind. Page load times are really important. Again, we need that speed in terms of load pages. Image sizes can impact speed. So just make sure that you test your site speed regularly. And that's for individual pages, of course. Meta descriptions, which I'll show you an example of that, and alt tags, as well as those heading tags that I mentioned. So I'll expand on all of this and show you some examples so it makes a little bit more sense. So first of all, URLs. So they obviously have to be readable. So you can see here, we've got the example of Business Station here, .com.au/training. That's understandable. It's readable. It makes sense. Then you've got this example here, which is page ID 53. Now, content management systems may give you that kind of code type URL automatically, but you can change it to have a URL relevant to obviously what makes sense for what's on the page, but also based on using your keyword research. So keep that in mind. Now, internal links are really important. I've got an example here. This is a Siebel Manager. I thought it was a good example because it's very clear, but you can see the second paragraph down. They talk about the accommodation offering 1 and 2 bedroom, guest rooms, suites, and self-contained apartments. Now, that self-contained apartments is in yellow, and that's a clickable link. So that takes me directly to the self-contained apartment room. Further down in that last paragraph, you see them talking about their fully equipped function rooms. And again, at that point, that yellow word links me straight to their function rooms. That's really important for the consumer because it makes it very easy. You're telling me about it, I want to get straight to it, but it's also great for your SEO. Now, 301 redirects say that, let's say you had an old page, which was a page about a product that you don't offer anymore. You might take that page down, but it's really important that you don't just delete that page or archive it. You put in a redirection so that if anyone does happen to hit that page, because it still exists on a directory listing or in an email that you sent 5 months ago or somewhere, there's still a link that's out there on the web, people click it, they don't get an error page. So it will automatically redirect them to a new page, which might be your new products or services. Title tags are really important. So each of the pages in your website should have its own unique title tag. Now, that title tag includes the main keywords for that page. So it's not the headline that's displayed on the actual page of your website. It's only visible in the back end in the code view. But Google and other search engines use it to display as the main title search in their search results. So, for example, if you're searching on Google for ASBAS Perth, like I have in this example, that's what comes up. So the optimal length of a title tag is about 60 characters. So it's long enough to display a good title without it getting cut off. You shouldn't use any stop words in there like the, is, at, those kind of things. It's just wasted because you've only got that 60 characters. So the preferred format is to put your primary keywords first in this sense. And it is a critical factor for Google bots. Those good page title tags can really heavily influence your search engine results, but it's fantastic for consumers as well, because you think you're coming up in a list of search results. You want people to actually get to your website. You want them to click onto your website rather than your competitors. So the more appealing you can make it, the more likely it is to be clicked. So make sure that it makes sense, because that's essentially your ultimate goal. And then you've got meta descriptions, which is the part underneath. Now, it's not visible in any part of your site except if you click the actual HTML code. And it's this little description that's found under your title in your search results. So it doesn't actually affect your search engine ranking, but if it's well written, again, it could encourage people to click through to your site, which obviously boosts your traffic. So it's like a mini advert for your web page, and it's completely free. Now, a really important thing to note is if you don't enter a meta description for your pages, Google will do it for you. So what they do is take a small sample from the text of your page. Sometimes it's cut off, sometimes it's not relevant to your keywords, sometimes it's just not enough of a hook to get people to actually click through. So make sure that you do take ownership of that. Obviously, it's separate for every page. Don't use the same meta description for every page. It has to be relevant to the page and make it unique. Now, this one's 160 characters, so you can use the 160 and make sure it doesn't get cut off. Then we've got alt tags and heading tags. So alt tags you see on the left-hand side, they're used for images. So they're the HTML tags that you can use to describe what the image is. So search engines can't see images as such. So if you don't have a description in here, they've got no idea what it is or if it's even relevant. So if Google bots can find your image because you've named it, it could appear on a Google Images search, but at the very least, it will improve your ranking for that page because it's additional keywords. So I would recommend that you include local keywords that are relevant to that page or the title of the page with the keywords that you're trying to rank for. Then you've got heading tags. Heading tags are really important for SEO. Now, we've mentioned this a couple of times, but they basically tell the reader of your content how important the content is. It also tells Google the same thing. So let's say you're looking at a web page and there's a big heading at the top. That would be probably an H1 tag. That'd be what the entire page is about. Then you might have smaller headings throughout the page. So that would be what those particular sections are about. So the information in those headings should contain your keywords. From a reader's perspective, your eyes are drawn to specific topics, but search engine use those heading tags as indicators of context. So what is on this page? How does it relate what the user's searching for? And how important is it? The bigger the size, the more important. So try and think of the headings in that way, the way that H1 is what the entire page is about, and then smaller are what those specific sections are about. And make sure that you're actually making use of those tags in the back end of your content management system. Okay, now looking at off-page SEO, also known as off-site SEO, that refers to any actions that are taken outside of your own website that impact your rankings within search engine results pages. So off-page SEO probably, well, I believe, should make up the majority of your SEO strategy because it will really help build that credibility of your website. Now, you want your website to rank above other websites that have similar messages. So to achieve that, you really have to build your website's authority. Now, a key way to do that is through link building. Link building is the process of getting external pages to link to a page on your website. Now, link building can be complicated. It can take time. Not all links are equal. So a link from an authoritative website will have a greater impact on search engine results, on your search engine results, than a link from a newly built or a low quality site. So keep that in mind. Now, to use a bit of an analogy around that, think about who you would trust more to give you legal advice for your business. would you trust 20 strangers or 2 qualified lawyers? So chances are that you're going to trust the advice of lawyers over random strangers. So even though you're not getting as many opinions, you know that the lawyers are educated, so their advice carries more weight. So the same applies for search engines. Google bots count all the links coming into your site. They don't consider them all equal. They will give more weight to quality links and then rank your website accordingly. So let's say you had 100 poor quality links and your competitor had 15 great quality links, then your competitor is going to rank higher than you. So another thing to keep in mind is Google has become very good at spotting a scam. So years ago, you used to be able to buy links and you could pay X amount for, let's say, 500 links from any random sites back to your website. Can't do that anymore. And Google will actually penalize you if you do try and do anything like that. So a good quality link should come from a trusted and a reputable site, or a site that's related to your type of business. Generally, these links are hard to come by and require some kind of human intervention to implement them. So some kind of conversation and, with a company or a membership, for example. They should generally be on a page that has content related to the content that it's linking to as well. Now, where they are located, they should add value to the reader. So let's say you're on a particular page and it's a blog about your product or service. That adds value to the reader by having a link to your website there, because that website's talking about you, that you can quickly get them there. So the other point is that they should be likely to be clicked by the reader. Now, in terms of link building, if you're looking at getting links and working on your link building, start to think about what memberships you have. So are you a member of any particular organizations, even local directories? I'll talk a bit about some online business listings now, but think about industry memberships and associations that you have. Think about businesses that you work cooperatively with. Do you perhaps cross-sell or cross-promote other businesses, and therefore it's relevant to have their information on your website and a link to their website, and they might like to do the same. So think about those kind of links that are relevant. I would also say, and when I talk about human intervention, you would have to have that conversation. So you would have to say, look, I've just built a page on my website that talks all about your product because we use it in our office or in our store. Are you interested in setting up a similar thing on your website? Or maybe look at your other companies' websites and see if there is a place that's relevant to put links on your site. Now, there's also non-link related off-page or off-site SEO. Now, those links from external websites are going to be the most commonly, the most commonly practiced on off-page SEO. But think about any other activity that occurs outside of your website that helps to improve your search engine ranking and links people back to your site. So obviously your social media. Now, social media, I'll talk about this again in a second, but social media sends signals. So the collective number of likes, shares, comments, and overall engagement that you have on social media also sends signals to search engines and affects your ranking. So that's absolutely crucial. Are you joining conversations in social? Are you active on social? Are you getting that genuine engagement? We'll go into that again more shortly. Guest blogging, let's say you've got bloggers that come and experience your product or service. There's lots of lists in WA. You've got Perth Now, you've got So Perth, you've got Urban List, all of those kind of sites. They're very authoritative sites, and think about if they've covered you, do they have links back to your website? If you win any awards or are involved in any other media programs or anything like that, obviously get the link back to your site. So I wouldn't let anything happen on the web about you that doesn't have a link back to your website. So just ask if you do have coverage online, make sure that you get that link, and make sure the link goes to the page that's relevant, not just to your homepage. Those kind of brand mentions are really important as well, but make sure that you get a link with it. Now, if you're working with influencers, this can really help as well, because they will obviously be mentioning brands, but in most cases, they will also be linking back to your business. So that's Offpage SEO. Now, sort of in line with that is essential online business listings. Now, there's a range of different business listings that you might have. The top one is obviously going to be your Google My Business account, which has your Google Places listing, which is your map location. It has your Google Plus account, which is where your reviews and everything exist, and a Google search area. So make sure that you have set up your Google My Business listing, you've claimed your specific location, and that you're engaging with people that are leaving reviews and encouraging reviews. So the more, again, like I mentioned, that social activity that's happening on the web is absolutely crucial. So keep that in mind. In line with that, any other review sites that are relevant to your business. So it could be TripAdvisor, it could be Yelp. Obviously, I've mentioned Google plus Facebook, people can review you. So think about in your business and your industry, what other review sites that are relevant to you. Now, a key thing about review sites is that you might not want to engage with them, or you might not have engaged with them yet, but there's a good chance that people have tried to engage with you, because you don't have to be the one that sets up these listings. The consumers can do it for you. Google can do it for you. So keep that in mind. Make sure that you are taking ownership of anywhere that your business is being mentioned. Now, there's also a range of other business directories. Now, there's tons of them, but the top three I would recommend would be Yellow Pages, True Local, and Yelp. Now, again, you might already have listings created for you, so make sure you go on and claim them. Make sure that you have consistent details on there. So your name, address, and phone number have to be consistent across all of these business directories. Because that's going to be a critical local ranking factor. So make sure that you are on all of those local business directories and that the information is consistent and the same. That's crucial. Now, don't do directory listings or local SEO without a physical address. It can put you at a disadvantage, because local listings play an important role in making your business more visible in that local search. So an address is required to get quality local listings. That's not suitable for all businesses. Sometimes you don't have an address, you work from, it's just an online store. So keep that in mind. You can list without an address, but if you have one and it's an address that you want customers to go to, absolutely communicate it. Australian business directories aren't just for boosting local rankings. They can also provide referral traffic from people actually clicking links and going through to your listing as well. So there's two benefits there. And then also, obviously, all of your social media channels. Now, like I said, you might not want to be on social media. People will want to engage with you. So know your target markets, know what social media sites they're on, and make sure you focus your efforts on those sites, which I will discuss a little bit more shortly. Now, remarketing is a form of pay-per-click advertising. So we're not going to go into search engine marketing in depth today. We're purely just going to talk about remarketing. Now, pay-per-click is where you advertise through, let's say, the Google ad network, and you can target specific search terms. Every time people click your ad, you pay. Now, remarketing is a form of pay-per-click advertising. It's extremely cost-effective. Obviously, you can immediately set it up and track it, and it's flexible. So keep that in mind. Now, SEO is ranking organically when people search, and SEM is where you can set up advertising, as I mentioned. So in terms of remarketing, have a look at the image that you see on the screen. Done correctly, remarketing is absolutely huge for increasing your brand awareness and really influencing conversions, and it's very low cost. So the concept is quite simple. People will get to your website however they get there. It could be through a brochure, a flyer, or signage on your business, or it could be a Google search. They get to your site. Once they're on your site, Google tracks them. And then when they leave your site, you have the opportunity of showing your ads as either banners, pop-ups, or words on other sites that they browse. So I would dare say you have been a recipient of remarketing, whether or not you've noticed it. Some companies that do it are quite a lot more aggressive than others in terms of they'll show you their ads constantly, so you feel like you're being very much stalked. So keep that in mind, but you control the frequency that your ads display, the length of time that you will advertise to that person that's been on your website. Now, And that I think it's fantastic because the person knows about your business, so they already have brand awareness because they've been on your website. You're then just reinforcing the message to them when they go to other sites. So it's great for businesses. Well, it's great for any business because it's low cost, and it should be at the bare minimum the only sort of an advertising campaign that you have running throughout the year. But it's fantastic if you've got a business where people will compare you amongst other businesses. So there's a bit of a research involved in the decision to purchase with your sort of product or service. So if they're going on multiple sites, you might have been the first site that they went to, and then by the time they get to the third or fourth similar product, they may have forgotten your business name. So that kind of reinforcement is absolutely crucial, and it's really good for getting people back. The best thing about it is that you only pay once they click to go back to your ad. So they might see to your site, sorry, they might see your remarketing ad 10 times and never click, or they might retype in your web address. They might not click that ad, or they might click it after, let's say, seeing it 3 or 4 times, but there's a chance that they're quite serious, or they want to know more, or they're ready to make a purchase because they're clicking to go back to your website. So that's where it really is cost effective and works quite well. So at a bare minimum, keep that in mind. Like I said, we're not going to go into any more depth on remarketing today because on pay-per-click advertising, because that then gets quite complex. But at the bare minimum, look at remarketing. Now, social media has made a huge impact on all industries. Consumers really engage with social networking sites to research companies, to make informed decisions about companies, to share their personal experiences of either products, services, or businesses themselves. Now, user-generated content is seen by the online community as more credible and more authentic. So people basically believe other people more than they do your advertising. So think about, for your business, what social media channels are you on? And what channels are accessed by your target market. And that's the crucial thing, is looking at who your target audience is. Now, there's a number of different social media channels. You don't have to be on all of them. You have to be where your target market is. So think about that. Now, social media is very much snackable content. So we want little pieces of information that's easy to digest, easy to take in, because what we ultimately need and want from a social media is engagement. We want that conversation. So it's not a broadcasting channel where you're just talking about yourself constantly. It's engaging with people. You want to provide them information, tips, product or business relevant imagery, that kind of thing. And you want them to engage with you. You want those likes, you want the comments, and you want the shares, and you have to be there to be part of that conversation. So if people are reaching out to you and asking you questions about different things that you're posting, or if they're making comments or even leaving reviews, you absolutely have to be there to engage with them and to respond, because it is social media, as the name goes. So think about it like being at a party. If someone's trying to talk to you and you're just standing there not talking back, you'll come across as rude and they'll give up and they won't want to talk to you anymore. Social media is exactly the same. You have to be there to be part of the conversation as a business. Consumers love nothing more than reaching out to their favorite product or brand and them responding, or even them sharing your content. So keep that in mind. Now, the huge benefit from an SEO perspective, which I did mention earlier, is that social media sends signals to search engines to help your website rank better. So obviously it's all linked in terms of what engagement you're getting. Make sure that you have that engagement going. Now, a key thing to keep in mind is that if you've got a following of, let's say, 1,000 people, your posts aren't going to be seen by your entire following. But if you were to do a post, let's say you did something boring, it was just words, no image, wasn't very interesting, and it was shown to, say, 500 of those 1,000 people, and nobody commented, there was no engagement whatsoever, that actually does you damage for next time you post. So Facebook, obviously, let's say we'll use Facebook as an example, knows that you didn't get much interaction on that. Next time you post, it's going to go, well, you know what, we're not going to serve it to the whole 1,000. We're not even going to serve it to that 500 people. We'll only show 200 people and we'll see how they go. So don't post when you don't have to. Don't focus on posting, 3 times a week or 3 times a day. post when you've got good quality content. It's a visual language, so we want to see imagery. We want obviously to think about that imagery and implementing images that are going to work on mobile first, because social media is very much looked at on a mobile device. You want to engage with your consumers, but also engage with trade and other people in your industry. Are there membership organizations? Are there other influencers in your industry or other organizations that you can be part of a conversation with? So keep that in mind. Social media is obviously complex. We've touched on it in about 2 minutes, but there are full webinars just on engaging with your customers on various forms of social media. The point today is be on the channels where your target market are. Make sure you're engaging with them and being part of that conversation, and understand that it does have huge impacts from an SEO perspective as well. All right, so the final thing we're going to talk about today is email marketing. Now, with email marketing, there's a range of different software that you can access. It's extremely cost effective. Obviously, the key thing to keep in mind is that you need to be obtaining a database. So you have to get that legally and ethically. But a lot of times, depending on the nature of your business, people will, obviously they have to opt in, so they have to offer that information to you. Once you're building this database, it's great to engage with people on that level. So hopefully a customer comes to you at some stage to purchase something, whether it's a product or a service. You then engage with them face-to-face or online, or that first interaction through the purchase. They then start following you on social media, and you continue the conversation there. You then can send them emails from time to time. Now, those emails shouldn't always be about promotions. They should provide information, maybe tips, hints, useful content to who your target market is and who that specific audience is, but it should be personalized. Personalization is really key. Let's say you've got people that purchase very different products from you. Try and segment your database for the best results, so that you know what they've purchased and therefore what information you're going to give them. So they might have purchased product A, so you're only going to send information about product A to the group of people that have bought it, not the group of people that bought product B, because they don't care about how to use product A, if that makes sense. So segmentation within your database is absolutely key. Now, you can segment about past purchases, demographic information, geographic information based on, where they're located. So personalization is the absolute key, and it's not a promotional tool solely. Obviously, yeah, everyone gets emails about great sales and that kind of thing, but also provide something, add value to that person's day. Think about your inbox and how you probably like to clear it out. And people are trying to do the same thing. So if you can provide value to them and something interesting, it will help you. Now, unsubscribes are fine. Don't worry about unsubscribes. You don't want people that aren't engaged with you. So if they're unsubscribing, they don't want you to talk to them. That's okay. Don't let that dishearten you. Now, your from, name, and your subject line are absolutely key, and that's to make sure that people open your emails. If they're not interesting, engaging, and not enough of a hook, they'll get deleted before people even get to the content. You could have the most amazing content in your email and the most terrible subject line. Therefore, it's a total missed opportunity. So again, there's a lot to learn from an email marketing perspective, but at a bare minimum, start collating a database and look at how you can add value to people's day by dropping things into their inbox that are interesting and something that's actually for them. All right, well, that's it from me on the basics of digital marketing. Everything that happens in a digital sense can be measured, so make sure that you're tracking all results within your own monthly reporting, and that you're making sure that you've set up the measurement prior to implementing campaigns. Now, another thing to keep in mind, you can book a one-on-one appointment with me through your ASBAS login, but this program is actually coming to an end in its current form. So you'll only have July to be able to get those appointments in. From the 1st of August, it'll be a completely new program. Now, with this program, you as a business may or may not be eligible to re-sign up. So we don't know the rules around that, and it's specific to each business. So keep that in mind. But yeah, if you do want to know more, get on and make an appointment. You can book as many as you want for July, and keep an eye out for any other webinars that happen. I'm going to stay on now and answer any questions, but thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great day.